Hello and welcome to a special edition of Planet Waves TV. Wasn't planning on doing one so soon, but here we are. My name is Eric Francis Coppolino, the host of Planet Waves FM and the author of the Planet Waves horoscope column. All can be found on planetwaves.net. Once again, welcome and thank you for joining me. Today's theme is why Sagittarius is the most interesting sign. Now, I, as a horoscope writer, am very good at not playing favorites with the signs. I am also good at not being biased for or against any particular sign when I write the horoscope. That is the last thing that you want from a horoscope writer, is to be bringing their personal prejudices into the horoscope column. I mean, there's no place for that. But I'm not talking about so much a personal prejudice here as I am an astronomical observation about the sign Sagittarius, and that involves the deep space points that exist in this sign. And there are two of them. One is the Galactic Center, discovered in about 1930. I think I'm off by a couple of years, maybe 32 or something like that. And then there's the Great Attractor, an intergalactic point discovered in approximately 1985 or so, and then another major breakthrough on that discovery around 30 years later in 2016. I will do my best to link to the things that cover these things in the description of this edition. So just check right below the read more. All right, so here's the thing with astrological signs. Generally, they are figments of the imagination, right? There is not actually a bull in Taurus. There's a kind of an asterism or a constellation, more accurately, that a long time ago some people imagined looked like a bull. Okay, there are not actually fish in Pisces, but there were people long ago who thought that, without cable TV and video games, or for that matter books to read or YouTube videos to watch, would make up exciting stories and keep themselves entertained, and these stories entered into the realm of mythology, and then the mythology at a certain point, or many different points, translates into astrology. So all of the astrological signs are essentially based on imaginary mythological concepts, and they work pretty well. I mean, it's a way of sorting out consciousness. It's a way of sorting out our concepts of energies, and essentially telling the story of the world and the story of our lives as kind of filtered through these metaphors. But the sign Sagittarius is very, very different. And the reason that it's different is because, first of all, these discoveries that were not made until the 20th century. And the concept Sagittarius goes back easily 2,400 years, probably much longer than that, to the origins of Greek astrology, which is the astrology that we predominantly use here in the West. And back in those days, and then through, you can trace this through the literature, Sagittarius is associated with things that are foreign, that are distant, that are that exceed our known culture. Sagittarius is also associated with all matters spiritual and many things associated with religion. These concepts translate over into the ninth house in various ways, though there are important differences between the ways that signs function and houses function. There are thematic similarities, and one of the things we get with both Sagittarius and the ninth house is a kind of discourse on all things mystical, spiritual, religious, and cosmic. And so as the 20th century develops, first of all, very early on, there's a discovery made of the Galactic Center. It's annoying me that I don't have that actual year. So hold on a second. Discovery of. This is me Googling. Okay, Galactic Center. How we doing there? No, we'll be able to get the Wikipedia version because all we need is the date. I don't really trust Wikipedia that much, but for this I will. Come on, Discovery. Okay, so the Discovery, 1918, why are they making this so complicated? 1954, let's look for this 1930. Sorry to take up your precious time here. By Jansky. Tell me Jansky is not in here. Okay, so in any event, that was useless. So here's one of my favorite stories in all of this stuff. The telephone's invented sometime in the 19th century, and then by the 1930s, they're laying undersea telephone cables, right? They're laying cables across the Atlantic Ocean. So right away we're in Sagittarius territory because we're attempting to connect continents for the purpose of essentially publishing in long distance communication, both of which are very Sagittarian themes, perfectly Sagittarian themes. And they've got these cables under the water, and the cables, well, let's imagine this is like long cables, thousands of miles long. The cables start to function as an antenna, and they start to pick up these radio waves, basically. And back when science actually was interested in discovering things and not pretending that it discovered things, they had to figure out where these were coming from, and where they were coming from was the core of the galaxy. And by inference, the Galactic Center was discovered through this essentially experimental device of undersea transatlantic telephone cable. So the whole thing is fitting the concept of Sagittarius just beautifully. And then they deduced that there is a radio source, many in fact radio sources, and at the center of our galaxy, and that the galaxy has a center. I should really read some books about this. I don't know exactly what was thought in the 1920s. So anyway, through this very Sagittarian thing of laying telephone cables under the sea, they discover something even more Sagittarian, which is the radio source at the center of the galaxy. And the galaxy is very, very large. It's like probably like 100,000 light years across. We're something like we're kind of halfway out, a little more, 25,000 light years from the center of this vast, glorious spiral galaxy. So we'll show you that. Kate, if you could please cue the spiral galaxy. That's it. So you can see that it's this beautiful thing in space, quite exotic and incredible. Okay, so that's discovered, and then approximately half a century goes by, and other, much later scientists are working on a similar puzzle, and one of the puzzles is how the galaxies all fit together. All the galaxies around us, which previously were known variously as the Virgo group, the local group, and so forth. It was not understood that all of these things were part of the same kind of main body. I'll show you some video of that in half a second. Okay, so in 1980s, they discovered this point in the middle of Sagittarius. The GC, by the way, is at around 27 degrees Sagittarius right now. And in the 1980s, this point in the middle, right around exactly 14 Sagittarius, I think it's 1407 these days, they discovered this thing called the Great Attractor. And what they've got is this point in space where they can see that all of these galaxies basically are rushing toward it. So while space on the whole is expanding, we live in a part of space where everything is rushing toward this thing that was first called the Great Attractor. and at about 1,000,000 miles an hour, 100,000 or so galaxies rushing toward this thing. It wasn't until around 2016 that a team led by a man named Brent Tully, who I interviewed for one glorious hour on Planet Waves FM. Sometimes I get lucky, and he was very very helpful and patient with me, and explained what he and his team did around 2016 or so. What they discovered was all of the galaxies in the local group and the Virgo group and basically any other galaxies we could see anywhere near the Milky Way were all part of this same great living, if you think of it that way, living thing called the Great Attractor. And they renamed it Laniakea. This is what it looks like. They called it Laniakea from the Hawaiian word boundless heaven. A lot of astronomers work in Hawaii because there's good view of the night sky. Yes, it's a little bit windy, but it's nice and dark, and you're out in the middle of nowhere. And this is what Laniakea looks like. The galaxies are organized in these strands, and this goes on for megaparsecs. And what Brent said to me was that there is a vast pool of subatomic particles located at the point of this thing, the kind of focal point. We, as you can see, if you replay it, are on the far end. That little red dot is who we are, where we are. We are way out on the far end, and we're pretty far out in the galaxy also. So we here in the Milky Way and on Earth are in the boondocks of space. And we have our backs to this vast intergalactic void where there's basically nothing till you get to the Pisces-Perseus supercluster, which is an even bigger version of Laniakea, located so far away that to us, these probably millions of galaxies in Pisces-Perseus look like a star to us. They look like one dot in space, right? Who knew? So, meanwhile, focusing back on Laniakea and the Galactic Center, I've always thought this was a truly incredible thing to have these deep space points, essentially the two focal point centers of the local universe located in Sagittarius. This is partly because Sagittarius is so boldly associated with these things of a distant nature. It fits the signature absolutely perfectly. And it means that there are physical extant objects that can be studied and thought about and considered that are actual direct metaphors for that sign. And that to me is just a beautiful thing. Now, it would be even less relevant, but it is more relevant, if Sagittarian people themselves were not so reflective of this, were not so embodying of this otherworldly, almost, it's not even otherworldly, it's like other universally quality, and seem to be such, in a way, beings distant from the life that we live here on Earth. And so when you think of Sagittarius and you think of the ninth house, you can think of things that are very, not only far and exotic and alien, but also just incredible and beautiful and different than the lives that we have here on Earth. And to me, it is always evocative of great respect for the unknown and for the lives that we live, to consider these things and to remember that I'm not just in a neighborhood, I'm not just in a country, I'm not just on a continent, I'm not just on a planet, but I'm part of, and we are all part of, a much larger community of I consider them all to be living things. I can't imagine that the galaxy is not a living thing with consciousness of its own. Now, the other side of this for Sagittarian people, those with Sag rising, Chiron in Sagittarius, Sag Sun, Sag Moon, is a need for grounding. And so the challenge of Sagittarius is the need to keep your feet on the earth while, in a sense, you have your head in the stars or in the galactic core, and imagining the possibilities to remember that if and only if you want to accomplish things on Earth, there is a practical side to things that has to be done. I know a lot of Sagittarians require people who are practical and who have grounding to help them get things done. But there's only so much of that you can do. Really, you have to have a fair amount of personal grounding, even to work with other people who are grounded. We are now in Sagittarius time, and while we are on topic, I'm going to open up a little sprite here, and you can't see this. Someday I'll do screen sharing, but I'm not up to that yet. And Sagittarius season for us begins at positions. Sun enters Sag. That's at 3:39 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday the 21st. That probably already happened. If you're seeing this, I'm working at about 12:24. So on the afternoon of Saturday the 21st, the Sun entered Sagittarius, and this should be helpful. We are living in very bleak times right now, and we are also living in death-obsessed times where people can't seem to get their mind off of these statistically irrelevant case counts and death counts that have actually nothing to do with anyone who might be getting sick from this COVID phenomenon. We are mainly experiencing COVID as an around-the-clock pressure campaign to be afraid, be very afraid, and I am afraid to say that it is working on many people whose answer to everything is, well, there's a lot of dead bodies, and I don't know where they've been on the planet, but there's always been a lot of dead bodies. 4,000 people a day die in the United States. Something like 100,000 people die every day in the world. And death is a part of life. I'm not saying this is some philosophical or a tantric or spiritual sense of the word. I'm just saying that we have we are mortal beings. Our planet is a mortal being, and as a result of that, and in addition, as a result of that fact alone, a lot of people die. And to single that out and to say, oh, now this special new death crisis is the thing that you should use to let us take control of you and everything you do and everything you think and where you go and who you associate with is completely wrong and makes absolutely no sense from a logical standpoint. But I'm not afraid of this thing. I'm more concerned with the behavior of the leaders who are abusing the trust the trust that people have in them. Now, the Sun going into Sagittarius may bring some relief from this. There's still a lot going on in Capricorn, which itself can have some of these similar issues, but not quite like Scorpio. Scorpio plunges us into the mysteries of death and resurrection, existence and transformation, and all of this. When the Sun enters Sagittarius on Saturday afternoon Eastern Time, right a bit before that, Venus entered Scorpio, and in addition, Mercury is in Scorpio as well. So there'll be enough of the sex death material of Scorpio to at least have some potential grounding in there, while the main, let's say. It's interesting how to characterize the nature of the Sun, because the nature of the Sun is broadcasting what it picks up. I believe that's how aspects work, and now the Sun is going to be broadcasting that which is coming from Sagittarius. Sagittarius tends to be more optimistic, more open-minded, and less obsessed with struggle and negativity than Scorpio is. But we also need to remember that we are flesh and blood beings, and we're not robots. We're not transhumans. We're not. We should not have IP addresses as individual people, and so that's my optimistic thought about just the fact of the presence of the sun in Sag. Now, there's two other important events that occur with the sun in Sag. One is on the 30th at about 4:30 a.m. Eastern time, and that is a full moon eclipse. It's a penumbral eclipse this year. This will be the fourth penumbral eclipse of the year. It's said to be a relatively weak eclipse, but even full moons can be powerful. But it is the moon passing through the penumbra of the Earth's shadow, not the umbra, which is a partial or a total eclipse. And so that is early on the morning of the 30th Eastern time. It should be visible. Anywhere the moon is visible, which includes the East Coast, will include the West Coast, will not be visible in Europe. It'll already be light in Europe, but pretty much all throughout the Pacific, Central, Mountain, and Eastern time zones will be able to see that. Don't know how to do this calculation for Australia. Then comes a second eclipse. This one's going to be a total eclipse of the sun. That is on December 14th, and that is at 23 and change degrees of Sagittarius. So these are the last two. I know in the last video I said that, well, we're down to the last events. I did forget there are eclipses coming up in Sagittarius, so now I'm remembering on your behalf. Two eclipses, a penumbral lunar on the 30th and a total solar on the 14th. The total solar on the 14th kind of splits the difference between the Galactic Center and the Great Attractor, a little closer to the Galactic Center. It's at 23 degrees, 4 degrees away from the Galactic Center. So this would qualify as an eclipse of the sun conjunct the Galactic Center. I have not done my homework on where it is going to be visible. Maybe if you know that, you can point us to that in one of the comments. Now these are like acceleration events. I consider eclipses to be kind of watershed events that separate us from one time in history from another, and I can't think of a more important time in history to be separated from another point in history. And I don't like to use the word hope, but there doesn't seem to be much else that we can do. There are many of us talking about the underlying falsehood of all of these media reports that are just so disgusting. I mean, I am so disgusted in particular with the New York Times, a newspaper that I have followed and been involved with in many different ways for many years. Since they started writing about me in the early 1990s. I got a lot of coverage in the New York Times in the 1990s, and so I have taken a keen interest in the New York Times. It was the newspaper I read as a child, and have done many articles critiquing the Times and read many critiquing the Times. I have never seen the New York Times be more disgusting in its presentation of fabricated, fraudulent, institutionalized, fraudulent science. They are directly complicit in this. They know that their case count is overstated by approximately 20-fold. They have published this. The reason I know they know this is they have published this all throughout 2020, and were on notice as early as 2007 that this thing being called a test, when it is not a test, not capable of a negative or a positive result. It's only capable of claiming that it found some particles of RNA that could match 100 different things. Are confirmed cases of infection. If you have tested positive, do not fall for this. You do not have a confirmed case of infection, and even if you have symptoms, there is no evidence whatsoever that those symptoms are caused by this thing that does not exist in an isolated purified state, SARS-CoV-2 2019 nCoV. So not only is the PCR being used to falsely claim that there are positive results when it can test neither positive nor negative, it's finding all kinds of garbage and amplifying all kinds of dead, non-viable nucleotides and RNA and healthy human RNA and God knows what else, and claiming people are diseased. It can't find a virus. It cannot diagnose the disease. All the literature of the test, quote-unquote test, says this. If you're interested in more about this, I have a special feature now running on Planet Waves. If you go to planetwaves.net, you'll see there's a tab for Planet Waves FM. Select that right on top. At least approximately in the autumn of 2020, is a presentation by Dr. Tom Cowan and also by Dr. Andy Kaufman. You're watching this on YouTube. Cowan and Kaufman are two darlings of the COVID truth movement because they have been teaching people about the PCR test. They've been teaching about isolation and purification. They've been talking about the problems with germ theory and the way that that terrain theory has been forgotten. Dr. Kaufman, who I had the privilege of meeting along with Tom Cowan a week ago, did a recently brilliant video on Koch's postulates and Rivers' postulates. Anyway, these two guys gave an all-day seminar 1 week ago from when I'm recording. It was way out in the boondocks in upstate New York. I ain't saying where it was, but I had to travel over hill and river and dale and cross farm country and up into the back hills. And then we got there. Me and my friend Cheryl Corson, Planet Waves textile bureau chief, and I had the incredible pleasure, first of all, of being around people all day. It was great to be around people all day. Not a single person wearing a mask. Not a single person worried about catching a disease from anyone. Everyone eating from a repeated potluck buffet with people just digging into food like normal humans doing, socializing, conversing, exchanging business cards and phone numbers, shaking hands, hugging, kissing, and flirting, and nothing happened. And mainly, no one was worried, as we should not be worried. That's what I'm saying to you. If you are worried, do the right thing for yourself, but please do the rest of us a favor and do not project your fear of sickness and death onto the rest of society. If you have a fear of sickness and death, you either have a medical issue or a spiritual issue, and your medical issue is not my medical issue. Your spiritual issue is not my spiritual issue. If you come to me for help, I will assist you any way that I can, whatever that might involve. But what we are seeing is a tremendous amount of projection of the fear of sickness and death onto all of society, and essentially going through this ridiculous exercise of treating healthy people as not only sick people, but as biosecurity risks. If you think it's possible that there are silent carriers of a virus who might never get sick, nor anyone around them ever get sick, I would propose you consider the implications of this. And the implications of this are healthy people being considered sick people. What they're actually saying is now there's no such thing as healthy anymore. If you want health, you got to buy it from Anthony Fauci and Pfizer, Moderna, and Merck Pharmaceutical. I'm not in that game. I'm not buying into that. All right, that is what I have to say to you today. Happy birthday, all you Sagittarians. I will have soon an announcement of a Sagittarius astrology studio reading. I will probably record that sometime on Sunday or Monday. Go to planetwaves.net for information about that. The readings tab is exciting. I run a 24-hour-a-day stream of all of my old readings from 2019. We're going to update that with all the ones from 2020 soon. So that's planetwaves.net. And then there's the readings tab, and you'll see there is an around-the-clock Mixlr player that offers these readings. We've got a few of these around-the-clock players. There's one linked from planetwaves.fm, which is an 80-hour music loop. I have some musical instruments over in that room there that I like to play whenever I can. And for the past few years, my friends Dan and Billy and Hector have been recording music, and you can hear that for free anytime you want at planetwaves.fm and just go to the live stream. All right. Thank you for listening. A pleasure hanging out with you on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. I'm going to get outside and walk around a bit and boost my immune system and make out with some dogs. Okay. Thanks once again. Please do like and subscribe to this channel. And if you can afford to, please subscribe to Planet Waves for the core community membership. We do all of this work without any sponsorship or monetizing YouTube videos or any of this crap, because a whole bunch of you people give us $10 or $15 a month. So thank you for doing so. Lots of love. Bye for now. Thank you, Kate, for editing this video on Saturday. And once again, bye for now.